The Auburn Tigers run rule Winthrop. Winthrop, more like Loosthrop. Am I right?
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Baseball's Londsay Crosby hanging out with us. You can find his Auburn baseball coverage here and over at the Barn Auburn as well. Londsay, Auburn run rules, which is always fun. Winthrop, 10-0. This one's over after 7, which is super, super exciting. And like every other case where we've talked about it, yes, they won by 10. The offense was electric. It's hard not to talk about Marciano right off the bat.
Yeah, Jake Marciano, 6 scoreless innings, brings his ERA down to 0.96. So,
is that good?
It's not bad, Zach. It's not bad. 3 hits. I was a little bummed about the fact that he gave up his first walk of the season today. So Jake Marciano now sits at 28 innings pitched with 1 walk to 41 strikeouts, a 41-1 strikeout to walk ratio. That's not bad. When you were watching, the thing that I noticed is the strike zone. Holy cow. This was the tightest strike zone that I may have ever seen in college baseball. You could see him struggle with it in the first inning. And then when you combine that with the fact that Winthrop likes to stand on top of the plate as close as legally allowed. He walks a guy, bad call. He didn't throw 4 balls in that at-bat. He also hit 4 batters. So Marciano's working through traffic the entire time. But 3 hits, the walk, 4 hit batters, none of them come around to score. He's also now fully stretched out, 102 innings. So, 102 pitches thrown in the outing. And I think the big thing with the doubleheader coming tomorrow, we'll talk about that in a minute, is you only have to use 2 pitchers. And we saw last week against Nebraska, when you can get into their bullpen early, that has ramifications for games 2 and 3 on a day when you would not be able to throw one of your studs and get them back for Sunday.
Yeah.
You don't have to use anybody outside of Marciano and Ethan Harden.
And of course, on the other side of that, Winthrop used 4 guys tonight. Now, could they go back to the bullpen for some of those guys? Possibly. But
yeah, Everett threw like 7 pitches, but the way those 7 pitches look, they may not want to go back to Carson Everett.
I kind of hope they do, Londsay. I'm not going to lie to you. Bring them back. Why not? Why not? No, obviously Auburn dominated the pitching aspect of this for sure. I think the score speaks for itself on that. But I mean, it just seemed like a lot of power hitting tonight. A lot of extra base hits for the Auburn Tigers. And obviously Chase Fralick, part of that, Bristol Carter, part of that. But this lineup starting to heat up like a lot of Auburn fans were kind of panicking about a few weeks ago. We're starting to see this lineup come to life.
Yeah, Chase Fralick has a home run, ended up with 3 RBI. Eric Guevara has a homer. He has 2 RBI.
Yeah.
Bristol Carter, for me, this is what you wanted from him last year. And you made supers without this, but this is what you were hoping for. He goes 2 for 3. One of those hits is a home run. He walks twice. He steals 3 bags. He is, to put it politely, he is a menace. And that's an endearing term. Like, he is just a pain in the butt for opposing teams on the base paths. He makes things happen. He does things. Bob Terrell, great point from the Auburnator in the chat. 3 for 3, no home run, but he had a double. Was one of those catalysts that kept innings going, kept it moving. And this offense is pretty strong, pretty intimidating, simply because they've kind of figured out these roles now, right? Bristol Carter at leadoff, being that prototypical leadoff guy, has really opened up the offense. Chris Rembert coming back and being Chris Rembert. Chase Fralick tapping into that power that he was still trying to grow into last year. He already has 5 home runs. He's a team leader in homers right now.
Right.
Eric Guevara right behind him with 4. I mean, you have a high on base guy who's a great base runner leading off. You have a really good contact hitter at number 2, and you have 2 power bats and Frelick and Guevara behind them. And then Bub Terrell is right there, and I think Bub is this close to completely breaking out and joining those other guys to get one of the best top 5s in the whole country.
Right, which is why everyone that covers college baseball nationally had Auburn so highly touted, is because of guys like that. But now you look at, I mean, you look at the averages of all these guys now. Everybody in Auburn's lineup tonight over 300, with the exception of Steele and Bingaman. And Bingaman's hitting 257, which is fine. But I mean, you really are seeing this roster and this lineup come together like we thought it would. And Winthrop, I don't know if you and I talked, but maybe it might have been me and Brad Law talking about it. And I'm sure you and Brad talked about it on the Barn Baseball Show throughout the week. But Winthrop coming in here with like a good looking record, but hadn't really played anybody. This game kind of went how I thought it would, Lindsay, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah, and you and I talked about this for Monday's show. Shout out to Uncivil Gamers on chat for kind of pointing this out. Like, Winthrop throws a lot of strikes, and Auburn's just a lineup that's deep enough to punish those strikes. And when you look at who they've played, and I had this conversation with Brad on the Barn Baseball Show this morning, do you weight the momentum or do you weight the quality of competition more? Because yes, Winthrop came in having won 8 consecutive games, but other than Michigan State, who was not a good Power 4 team, they beat Maine 3 times, they beat Marshall, they beat Morehead State 3 times, which, if you were curious, not a state.
Correct.
Of the 50, Morehead is not one of them. I do want to go there. I think that sounds like fun, but not a state. And so like they had the momentum from the wins, but they didn't have like the quality of competition. The good teams they played, NC State took them to the woodshed 7-3. They dropped one of the games against Georgetown.
Right.
And when they faced a really deep lineup that could punish them, they just weren't able to be perfect coming through. And that's exactly what happened.
Yep, absolutely. So another nice win for the Auburn Tigers. Let's look ahead to tomorrow. Now a doubleheader. How does that impact the pitching? How does that impact maybe a guy like Chris Rembert? Does it make sense for him to play, a full 2 games tomorrow? Let's jump into all of that next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. They now have Auburn and Alabama's line up. Alabama an 8.5-point favorite. If you think the Auburn Tigers can go into Tuscaloosa and cover or win outright, the money line would be delicious. If you think Auburn can pull the upset Saturday night in Tuscaloosa, you can head over to FanDuel.com right now. Also, FanDuel is giving you a way to win even larger with college basketball parlay profit boost. So you can certainly do that and involve tomorrow's game as well. FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at TurboTax. It's tax time, but for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient, sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth and wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're going to get a major upgrade into it. TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. Head to turbotax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment today. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and one position you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on, you need the right hire. This is a job for sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, and of course, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored job. Indeed.com/podcast can get listeners of this show a $75 sponsored job credit. Once again, that is Indeed.com/podcast. Need to hire? That's a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Quick programming note. Obviously, we're live tonight. We will have a show up Sunday morning. We won't be able to go live after the second game tomorrow with basketball tomorrow night. So we will recap the doubleheader and the series and look ahead to conference play. That show will drop Sunday morning. Lindsay, as far as, tomorrow being a doubleheader instead of, a 3-game series where you play one every day, does this benefit Auburn? Does it not really have much of an impact? Does a guy like Chris Rembert play less, and so maybe that hurts Auburn? I mean, does it really have an impact one way or the other?
I think from a pitching perspective, it helps Auburn because you didn't use anybody behind Marciano that you really needed for games 2 and 3. And that's absolutely no disrespect intended there for Ethan Harden, right? That's just, he's one of those guys we haven't seen a lot of until today. Yeah. From an offensive perspective, though, to your point, is I really feel like you're not going to want Chris Rembert to play 18 innings in the field on the same day, coming back from the ankle injury like he is. And so now you're in a situation where you're going to have to shuffle things a bit. Lucas Steele was the DH today. I think we can all agree that Lucas Steele is having a tough start to his season. We know he will catch game 2 tomorrow because he is the go-to catcher for Petrovic. So he will be behind the plate, which means Chase Fralick probably at first. And so because of that, maybe game 2 is the one where you put Rembert at DH so that you have DH open for game 3 for Ethan Bingaman. You're going to have to shuffle around a little bit. I do think the good thing here, though, is you have enough guys who need to be in the lineup offensively who are good defenders. Like Brandon McCrane has played in the last week. He's played second base. He's played shortstop. He's played third base. He was your shortstop tonight, and he wasn't bad.
Yeah.
He was perfectly fine at short. And so you have the flexibility, which I like. It's not always a thing you've had, but it's probably not ideal that you're going to have to pull Chris Rembert from the field for one of those 2 games unless he just is feeling really great after game 2.
Mm-hmm. Do you see anything from Winthrop's bats that could present any kind of issue for anybody on Auburn's staff for tomorrow?
I don't want to jinx it, but I really feel like Winthrop is kind of lacking in the contact department, right? I felt like a lot of their swings, they were just late on their, it almost felt like they weren't prepared for the stuff that Auburn was giving them. And it's not like Marciano's throwing incredibly hard or anything. I mean, he's a soft tossing lefty type, but it just really kind of felt like they weren't prepared for what they were seeing at the plate. It makes me wonder, are they going to be a little better tomorrow? Are they going to put up more of a fight tomorrow? But honestly, some of these guys are really good. I remember thinking coming into the series, the second baseman who led off, Natividad. I remember thinking he was pretty decent from a statistical perspective. He didn't really show me much today. I don't want to jinx this. I don't want a Winthrop person here in our comments all mad, which I had to look, by the way. That's in South Carolina, if you were curious.
I think I knew that.
I'm just glad it's not called Winthrop State, because that would be dumb.
Because Winthrop is not a state. It's the name of a school.
The name of a school, yeah. But no, it's really, it feels like this offense has kind of been powered by, hey, we're going to get on base through walks. We're going to get on base through singles. We're going to get on base through being hit by pitches. And we're going to turn around and we're going to use that to kind of wreak some havoc. And when we can't do that, our offense is just kind of cut off at the knees, right? 3 hits tonight. I don't think any of them were I think one of them was a double. Wouters had a double. Outside of that, a bunch of singles. They drew 1 walk all game. Got a couple guys on being hit by pitch, but just couldn't They stole one. They only attempted one steal.
It just never really felt like they had any sort of control of the game or any sort of momentum when they were at the plate.
They're really reliant on putting balls into play, batter after batter after batter, and stressing your defense. Auburn's defense, especially with the move now to put Eric Guevara back at third and McCrane at short, the defense held up perfectly fine. I don't think they didn't have any errors today. They had 4 on Tuesday, right? So, yeah, I don't want to jinx this, but I do think that Winthrop isn't posing the same type of threat that I was concerned that they would on paper. But I'm curious to see if they make adjustments over the weekend. They went 0 for 6 with runners in scoring position and 0 for 10 with runners on base. Like, statistically, that's not likely to continue.
I mean, that sounded like us like 2 weeks ago, right?
It sounded like the Atlanta Braves for half the season last year. 0 for 6 with runners in scoring position. But yeah, I mean, we had moments of that last year, and like it normalized, it fixed itself, right? I'm not saying Winthrop skies are as good as ours, but absolutely, like this is something they can fix. So I see shout out to Tammy in the chat who's telling me not to jinx this, but that's a thing that's going to normalize. Some of those batted balls are going to start falling. Some of that was great Auburn defensive plays.
Yeah.
Let's give them that too.
Well, as Auburnator says, if we lose tomorrow, we blame Lindsay.
Listen, my wife and I will be at the game as fans, as spectators.
Yeah,
they're not
a little
allowed to
Auburn
lose.
baseball date night.
Yes, they're not allowed to lose on date night. That's a rule. So there you go.
I think I have no issue with it. I have no issue with it.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a chance that we see something similar to what we saw last weekend where the opposing team runs out of pitching with what we saw tonight?
Given that it's a doubleheader, that's more likely in game 3.
Right.
They didn't really go super deep into their pen tonight, so I don't think it's going to come up as much in game 2 unless you knock that starter out early. The good news is, if they don't change their rotation, game 3 starter, Randy Guzman, is the worst of the 3. He's pretty consistently been knocked around a little bit in his starts. And so that game could get a little bit ridiculous late if he continues to have trouble. Okay. But if they move him up and throw him in the morning, that could legitimately be an issue there. So we'll see. Like it's entirely up to them. Do they want to run out of pitching in game 2 or game 3? I feel like he's gettable by Auburn's offense. Watch him throw 6 shutty right now. But I feel like he's
just jinxing everything right now.
I'm just jinxing the whole thing. If we lose this series, I'm never allowed back on this show.
Yes, you are, but you might have to wear some of it. So
that's fine. Okay. That's fine. Okay. I have that coming. It's what I get for doing this without a hat. Thanks for pointing that out, Auburnator.
Yeah, that's right. I
don't have the hat, the lucky hat.
What do you think the ceiling and floor is for this team right now?
Let's talk about ceiling and floor. I do think the ceiling of this team is what we saw last year, right? Hosting a super regional national seed. But I think the floor is higher than what we saw last year. So when you look at the ceiling and the floor is probably, I would say, postseason team right now. And the ceiling is hosting a super regional, chance to go to Omaha.
Yeah, everybody in the chat, put your ceiling and floor for Auburn baseball right now, because clearly that's what the people want. So
I've seen a lot of ceiling and floor comments in the chat. So
yeah, totally unforced, like
yeah,
wild craziness. What a way to spend your Friday night. How can people check out everything you've got, Lindsay Crosby?
All my Auburn baseball content, 1 on here, 2 thebarnauburn.com and the Barn Baseball Show. Also, the Atlanta Braves content, bravestoday.com, and the Braves Today newsletter, which is now a Substack bestseller. Shout out. It's like me and Justin Ferguson are the Substack bestsellers here in Auburn, Alabama.
I love it. I would say per capita, we have more Substack bestsellers than anywhere else.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely probably the right call.
What do you think the ceiling and floor is for Substack bestsellers in the city of Auburn? I don't know.
I think the floor is 2 because we have 2 now. I'm curious to see whether the Olympic sports that Justin Lee does, if
He's doing a good job.
I think it's going to be a Substack bestseller too. And so we can
I
have
think so. So the ceiling is
the ceiling's at least 3, maybe another one if there's a non-sports Substack we can do. So floor 2,
man.
ceiling, maybe floor.
Please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.